They demanded Earth's surrender. Humanity responded with total annihilation. Part 1. The stars above Earth suddenly went dark. Not because the sun had died, but because something massive had arrived. 2,000 alien warships blocked out the light, each one larger than any building humanity had ever constructed. The vessels hung in space like metal mountains, their weapons pointed directly at Earth's blue surface. Admiral Han Do-yoon stood on the bridge of the ESS Indomitable, humanity's largest warship. His hands gripped the railing as he stared at the screen showing the enemy fleet. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion 10 years ago. He had seen battles. But this was different. This was an entire civilization coming to crush them. The communication screen flickered to life. An alien face appeared, reptilian and cold. The creature's eyes held no warmth, no mercy. It spoke in a voice that had been translated by their computers, primitive humans. I am High Commander of the Vrakath Collective. Your species has been evaluated. You will surrender within 72 hours. You will decommission all military vessels. You will hand over control of all your worlds. 40% of your population will be taken for labor. This is not negotiation. This is instruction. Comply or face extinction. The screen went black. Silence filled the bridge. Lieutenant Kang Hana checked her tactical displays, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. She was young but brilliant, and right now her face showed no fear, only calculation. Sir, their fleet positioning suggests they expect us to surrender, she said quietly. They're not even maintaining defensive formations. Admiral Han Do-yoon nodded slowly. They've done this before. Many times, I would guess. Down on Earth in the Unified Command Center buried deep beneath the Swiss Alps, Ambassador Choi Soo-min was already trying to establish diplomatic channels. She had spent 20 years negotiating peace treaties, trade agreements, and colony disputes. She believed in the power of words of finding common ground. But when she finally managed to open a channel to the Vrakath fleet, her words fell on deaf ears. The alien diplomat barely listened before cutting her off. Your species has nothing we want except your labor and your worlds. There is nothing to discuss. Surrender or die. Choi Soo-min sat back in her chair after the transmission ended. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke to the Earth Council. They won't negotiate. They've made that clear. They see us as animals to be domesticated or destroyed. The Earth Council met in emergency session. Representatives from every nation, every colony, every human settlement gathered virtually. The debate lasted 4 hours. Some argued for surrender, hoping to save at least some of humanity. Others demanded resistance, even if it meant death. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Humanity would not kneel. While politicians debated, Dr. Park Ji-woo worked in her laboratory 300 meters below the moon's surface. She was the lead scientist of the Quantum Weapons Division, a program so secret that even most government officials didn't know it existed. For 15 years, she had been developing weapons that bent the rules of physics itself. She called it Project Terminus. The technology could manipulate quantum tunnels and zero-point energy, creating weapons that could tear holes in spacetime. The prototypes had worked in testing, but they had never been used in actual combat. The weapons were so powerful, so devastating, that they were meant only as a final deterrent. Now it seemed that final moment had arrived. Dr. Park received the coded message from Admiral Han Do-yoon at 0300 hours. She read it twice, then looked at her reflection in the dark screen. Her face looked tired. She had barely slept since the aliens arrived. But her eyes were clear and determined. She sent a single word in response. Ready. Captain Lee Min-ho received his orders at 0400 hours. He commanded the Special Operations Division, soldiers trained for the most dangerous missions humanity could conceive. His team consisted of 200 of the best fighters, pilots, and infiltrators in human space. The mission was simple in concept, incredibly dangerous in execution. They needed to plant reconnaissance drones throughout the alien fleet. They needed to map their defenses, find their weaknesses, and do it all without being detected. If even one drone was discovered, the aliens would know humanity was preparing to fight. Lee Min-ho gathered his team in the briefing room. He looked at their faces, young and old, men and women who had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not return. We're going to fly right into the middle of that fleet, he said simply. We're going to plant our eyes and ears on their ships, and we're going to come back. Questions? There were none. These soldiers knew what was at stake. They launched at 0600 hours in stealth craft smaller than shuttles, their hulls coated with material that absorbed sensor scans. They moved slowly, drifting like debris through the gaps in the alien formation. Every moment felt like an eternity. Every sensor ping from an alien ship made hearts race. Lieutenant Yoon Hyun, one of Lee Min-ho's best pilots, guided her craft within 50 meters of a massive Vrakath battleship. Her hands were steady as she deployed the microscopic drones. They attached to the alien hull like dust particles, invisible but transmitting everything they saw and heard. One by one, the teams completed their missions. One by one, they began the slow drift back toward human space. But as the last team was extracting, an alien patrol craft changed course. It was heading directly toward them. Captain Lee Min-ho made the decision in seconds. His craft broke from cover, engines flaring to life, drawing the patrol's attention. The alien ship gave chase while the rest of his team escaped. For 10 terrifying minutes, Lee Min-ho flew through the alien fleet, dodging weapons fire, using the massive warships as cover. He barely made it back. His craft was damaged, sparking, but functional. When he climbed out, his team was waiting. They had all made it. The reconnaissance drones transmitted data continuously. Admiral Han Doyen and Lieutenant Kang Hana studied the information, building tactical models, finding weaknesses. The aliens were powerful, but they were also arrogant. Their formations had gaps. Their communication protocols were predictable. The 72-hour deadline approached. The Vrakath sent repeated demands, each one more threatening than the last. Ambassador Choi Soo-min responded with silence. There was nothing more to say. On Earth, people gathered in streets and homes watching the sky. Some prayed. Some cried. Some simply held their loved ones close. They all knew what was coming. In the final hour, the Earth Council recorded a message for the Vrakath High Commander. Admiral Han Doyen delivered it personally. You came to our home demanding surrender. You threatened our families, our children, our future. You expected us to bow. You expected fear. You expected compliance. He paused, his voice growing harder. You will receive none of these things. Humanity does not surrender. We do not kneel. You have made a grave mistake coming here. You wanted a response? Here it is, come and take our world. We dare you. The transmission ended. The ultimatum expired. The Vrakath fleet began to move forward, weapons charging, ready to teach humanity the price of defiance. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Han Doyen watched them come. Beside him, Lieutenant Kang Hana's fingers danced across her tactical display. Behind them, the crew stood ready at their stations. In her lunar laboratory, Dr. Park Ji-woo's hand hovered over the activation switch for Project Terminus. In the hangar bays, Captain Lee Min-ho and his special operations teams climbed into their assault craft. Across human space, every ship, every weapon, every soldier prepared for war. The Vrakath had demanded Earth's surrender. They were about to discover what humanity gave instead. They demanded Earth's surrender. Humanity responded with total annihilation. Part 2, the Vrakath fleet moved like a metal storm toward Earth's defensive perimeter. Their commander, sitting in his massive flagship, watched the human vessels with contempt. 200 small ships against his 2,000 giants. He had conquered 23 civilizations. This would be the easiest victory yet. He ordered the attack without ceremony. No dramatic speech, no final warning. Just a simple command that sent 1,500 warships surging forward. Admiral Han Doyen watched them come on his displays. His fleet was scattered across Earth's outer defense zone, each ship positioned exactly where Lieutenant Kang Hana had calculated. The young tactical officer stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the numbers streaming across her screens. They're maintaining their arrogant formation, she said quietly. No defensive posture. They think we'll break immediately. Let them think it, Han Doyen replied. All ships, engage on my mark. Make every shot count. The human fleet opened fire first. Missiles streaked through space, followed by particle beams and railgun rounds. The Vrakath shields absorbed most of the damage, but not all. 3 alien destroyers exploded in brilliant flashes. 5 more suffered critical damage. The Vrakath commander barely noticed. He had lost ships before. He ordered his fleet to return fire. But something unexpected happened. The human ships weren't where his weapons targeted. They had moved, faster than his sensors could track. They darted between his massive vessels like insects, too quick to swat, too small to waste heavy weapons on. Except these insects had very sharp stings. Captain Lee Minho led his strike wing directly into the heart of the alien formation. His craft was small, barely 20 meters long, but it carried weapons designed to punch through heavy armor. He targeted the connection points where alien ship sections joined together, the weak spots his reconnaissance drones had identified. "Fire!" he shouted, and 20 missiles launched simultaneously. They struck a Vrakath heavy cruiser at 6 different junction points. The ship didn't explode. It simply came apart, splitting into pieces that drifted away from each other. Lieutenant Yoon Hyun followed his attack with her own wing, targeting another cruiser. Her shots were just as precise, just as devastating. The aliens were learning that size didn't matter if you couldn't hit your enemy. The battle raged for 3 hours. The Vrakath kept pushing forward, kept firing, kept trying to overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers. But they were bleeding. For every human ship destroyed, they lost 5 of their own. The math was simple and terrible. By the time the Vrakath commander ordered a tactical withdrawal, he had lost 150 ships. His confidence had evaporated. These humans were not like the other species he had conquered. They fought with a precision and ferocity he had never encountered. But he still had nearly 1,800 ships. He would regroup, adapt, and crush them properly. The retreat was temporary. Admiral Han Do-yeon didn't pursue. That wasn't the plan. He ordered his battered fleet to fall back slowly, drawing the aliens deeper into human space. The Vrakath took the bait. They interpreted the retreat as weakness, as the beginning of human collapse. They were wrong. The alien fleet pushed past Mars, past the asteroid belt, driving toward Earth with renewed aggression. They had lost ships, yes, but they would make the humans pay for every single one. They would bombard Earth until nothing lived. They would make an example of humanity that would echo across the galaxy. Lieutenant Kang Hana tracked their advance on her tactical map. Every ship, every movement, every formation change was recorded and analyzed. When the Vrakath fleet reached the coordinates she had marked in red, she looked up at Admiral Han Do-yeon. "They're in position, sir." Han Do-yeon nodded. "Dr. Park, you're cleared for activation." 300,000 kilometers away on humanity's lunar base, Dr. Park Ji-woo entered the final authorization code. She had spent 15 years building this system. She had run thousands of simulations. But this was real. This was actual war. Her finger pressed the activation button. Throughout the solar system, hidden platforms came to life. They had been positioned over months, disguised as mining equipment or research stations or debris. Now they revealed their true nature. Quantum disruptors activated in a coordinated network. The devices didn't fire weapons. They did something far more insidious. They created localized disruptions in the quantum fields that all matter existed within. For the Vrakath fleet, the effects were immediate and catastrophic. Their shields flickered and died. The energy fields that protected their hulls from weapons simply stopped working. Their communication systems went silent, filled with static and noise. Their targeting computers showed nonsense data. Even their weapons began to malfunction, power cells fluctuating wildly. The Vrakath fleet found itself blind, deaf, and defenseless in the middle of enemy territory. Admiral Han Do-yeon didn't hesitate. "All units weapons free. Show them what happens when they threaten our home." The human fleet emerged from hiding spots throughout the region. They had been waiting, patient, for this exact moment. Now they struck with everything they had. Hidden weapon platforms revealed themselves and opened fire. Thousands of autonomous strike craft launched from concealed positions in the asteroid belt. They swarmed the Vrakath ships like angry wasps, their weapons cutting through unshielded armor. Captain Lee Minho led his special operations teams in bombing runs that targeted the largest enemy vessels. Without shields to protect them, the Vrakath ships were vulnerable. Missiles that would have been deflected before now tore deep into their hulls. Explosions bloomed across their surfaces. The Vrakath tried to fight back, but their weapons were unreliable. Shots went wild. Energy beams flickered and died. Their magnificent fleet was reduced to helpless metal boxes floating in space. Then Dr. Park Ji-woo activated the second stage of Project Terminus. She had told Admiral Han Do-yeon about the quantum disruptors. She had not told him about the Singularity missiles. The weapons were theoretical until 3 months ago. Even now, she wasn't entirely sure they would work as designed. Each missile contained a micro-black hole, stabilized by quantum fields and suspended in a magnetic containment system. When the containment failed, the black hole would exist for exactly 4.7 seconds before collapsing. In those seconds, its gravitational pull would be intense enough to tear apart anything within 1,000 kilometers. The missiles launched from hidden platforms positioned throughout the battle zone. They were small, no larger than escape pods, and they moved slowly. The Vrakath ships, struggling with their malfunctioning sensors, didn't even see them coming. The first missile reached its target, a Vrakath battleship 3 kilometers long. The containment field collapsed. The micro-black hole activated. For 4.7 seconds, the massive warship stretched and distorted like putty being pulled. Its metal hull twisted into impossible shapes. Pieces of the ship were pulled inward, compressed, crushed. Other pieces were ripped away and flung into space. When the black hole collapsed, the battleship was gone. Not destroyed in the traditional sense, simply gone, erased from existence. 20 more missiles reached their targets. 20 more Vrakath capital ships disappeared in swirling vortexes of distorted space-time. The aliens who witnessed it couldn't understand what they were seeing. It looked like reality itself was eating their fleet. Lieutenant Kang Hana counted the enemy losses with cold efficiency. Her voice was steady as she reported to Admiral Han Doyen. Enemy fleet strength reduced to 62%. Their command structure is in chaos. Multiple vessels are attempting to retreat, but they're running into their own ships. Some are firing on each other in the confusion. Captain Lee Minho's voice came over the communication channel. Admiral, I'm seeing escape pods launching from at least 40 vessels. They're abandoning ship. Han Doyen considered this for a moment. Then he opened a channel to the entire Vrakath fleet. His voice was broadcast on every frequency they used. Vrakath ships, this is Admiral Han Doyen of Earth Defense Fleet. You came here expecting an easy conquest. You came here expecting us to surrender like all the others before us. But humanity is not like the others. We fight. We adapt, we win. Your fleet is crippled. Your shields are gone. Your weapons are failing. You have one chance to survive. Surrender now or we will erase every single one of your ships from existence. The response was silence. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then one Vrakath destroyer transmitted a surrender signal. Then another. Then 10 more, but the Vrakath flagship did not surrender. Its commander, enraged and humiliated, ordered his remaining loyal ships to make one final attack run. If they were going to die, they would take humans with them. 700 Vrakath vessels, damaged but still dangerous, turned toward Earth and accelerated to maximum speed. It was a suicide run. They knew it. They didn't care. Pride demanded blood. Admiral Han Doyen watched them come. He looked at Dr. Park Ji-woo's face on his communication screen. She looked exhausted but determined. He gave her a small nod. She activated the cascade array. The quantum disruptors throughout the solar system synchronized perfectly. They created a wave of quantum collapse that propagated through space at the speed of light. They demanded Earth surrender. Humanity responded with total annihilation. Part 3. The surviving Vrakath fleet regrouped near Neptune, as far from Earth as they could retreat while staying in the solar system. Their commander was dead, killed when his flagship was torn apart by a singularity missile. The new commander, a younger officer named Draxus, had never expected to lead the fleet. He had never expected to survive either. He sent an emergency transmission to the Vrakath Collective's core worlds. The message was desperate, pleading. He needed reinforcements. He needed help. The humans were not primitive. They were dangerous. The response came 14 hours later. A relief fleet would be dispatched immediately. But it would take 3 weeks to arrive. Draxus had to hold position until then. He had to keep the surviving ships together and prevent humanity from pursuing. 3 weeks might as well have been 3 years. Admiral Han Doyen gathered his command staff for a strategy meeting. They assembled in the war room deep inside the Indomitable, surrounded by holographic displays showing the tactical situation. The captured Vrakath ships were being studied. The surrendered aliens were being interrogated. Information was flooding in. Lieutenant Kang Hana presented her analysis. The Vrakath are waiting for help. Our intelligence suggests a fleet of at least 1,000 ships will arrive in approximately 20 days. If we let them link up with their survivors, we'll face another major battle. Captain Lee Minho, recently promoted after his performance in the battle, nodded in agreement. We should hit them now while they're weak. Finish this, but Admiral Han Doyen was thinking bigger. He looked at the data from interrogations, at the maps of Vrakath territory that captured computers had provided. An idea was forming in his mind, something audacious and terrifying. We're not going to wait for them to bring reinforcements. he said slowly. "And we're not going to just destroy their survivors. We're going to do something they won't expect. We're going to take the war to them." The room fell silent. Ambassador Choi Suman, attending the meeting via video link from Earth, leaned forward. "Admiral, are you suggesting we invade their territory? We barely survived defending our own system." "We didn't barely survive," Han Doyen corrected. "We crushed them. Completely. With technology they can't counter and tactics they don't understand. Now we have 3 weeks before their reinforcements arrive. 3 weeks to change the rules of this war." Dr. Park Ji-woo appeared on another screen, broadcasting from her lunar laboratory. "If we're going on the offensive, we'll need more ships. Many more ships. I have some ideas, but they're radical." "Everything about this situation is radical," Han Doyen replied. "Tell me." Dr. Park pulled up schematics on the shared display. "We can't build large warships fast enough. It takes months to construct a proper battleship. But we can build smaller craft in days. Drone fighters controlled by artificial intelligence, armed with weapons designed specifically to kill Vrakath ships. We use our manufacturing advantage. We overwhelm them with numbers." Lieutenant Kang Hana studied the designs, her mind already running calculations. "The swarm doctrine. We learned it from Earth insects. Individual wasps are harmless to a bear. 1,000 wasps will kill it. We become the swarm." "Exactly," Dr. Park confirmed. "I can have the first production lines operational within 48 hours. Within 2 weeks, we'll have 50,000 drone fighters. Maybe more." Captain Lee Minho grinned. "I like it. Death by 1,000 cuts, literally." Admiral Han Doyen made his decision. "Do it. Get those factories running at maximum capacity. Lieutenant Kang, I want targeting priorities for the Neptune siege. Ambassador Choi, start reaching out to the civilizations the Vrakath conquered. Tell them we're coming to liberate them. Tell them humanity is done being defensive." The plan moved forward with frightening speed. Earth's industrial capacity, built up over centuries of space colonization, shifted to war production. Factories on Mars, Luna, and orbital platforms around Earth began churning out drone fighters around the clock. Each one was small, barely 10 meters long, but deadly. The drones carried plasma cutters, weapons originally designed for mining and salvage. Against Vrakath armor, weakened by quantum disruptors, the cutters were devastatingly effective. They could slice through hull plating like a knife through paper. 48 hours after the decision was made, the first 5,000 drones were ready. Admiral Han Doyen didn't wait for the full production run. He launched the Neptune siege immediately. The Vrakath survivors detected the approaching swarm on their sensors. At first they were confused. The individual signatures were tiny, barely worth noticing. Then they realized what they were seeing. Thousands of small craft all moving in perfect coordination, heading directly toward their position. Commander Draxus ordered his fleet to open fire. Energy beams and missiles streaked out to meet the swarm. Hundreds of drones were destroyed in the first wave, but thousands more kept coming. The point defense systems couldn't track them all. There were too many moving too fast, coming from too many directions. The drones reached the first Vrakath ship, a damaged cruiser that had been limping along at the edge of the formation. They swarmed over its hull like insects, dozens of them finding purchase on the metal surface. Their plasma cutters activated. Inside the cruiser, the crew heard horrible sounds: screeching metal, atmosphere venting, alarms blaring. The drones were literally carving their ship into pieces, cutting through bulkheads and corridors and vital systems. Within 10 minutes, the cruiser was a drifting wreck, its interior exposed to space, its crew dead. The drones moved to the next target, and the next, and the next. Commander Draxus watched in horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. His ships fired constantly, destroying hundreds of the small craft, but more kept coming. It was like trying to fight a cloud. You could hit parts of it, but you couldn't stop it all. Captain Lee Minho led his human pilots in coordinated strikes alongside the drones. While the automated craft kept the Vrakath distracted, his teams targeted critical systems. They destroyed communication arrays, weapon platforms, engine clusters. They captured boarding pods and launched them at damaged vessels. His special operations soldiers storming aboard to plant explosives and gather intelligence. The siege lasted 6 days. By the end, only 100 Vrakath ships remained functional. The rest were destroyed or crippled beyond repair. And still the drone swarm grew. More craft arrived daily from human factories, replacing losses and adding to the overwhelming numbers. On the seventh day, Dr. Park Ji-woo implemented her psychological warfare protocols. She had been analyzing Vrakath psychology, studying their fear responses, their breaking points. Now she weaponized that knowledge. Human ships began broadcasting recordings of Vrakath distress calls. The aliens heard their comrades screaming as ships were torn apart. They heard commanders begging for mercy. They heard the sounds of hulls being cut open, of atmosphere venting, of people dying in the cold vacuum of space. The broadcasts played on repeat, on every frequency the Vrakath used. They couldn't escape it, couldn't turn it off. The sounds of their own defeat surrounded them constantly. Commander Draxus tried to maintain order, but his fleet was breaking psychologically. These were conquerors who had never known defeat. They had spent their lives crushing other species, taking what they wanted, answering to no one. Now they were the ones being hunted, the ones being killed, the ones desperately trying to survive. Some captains cracked completely. They turned their weapons on their own ships, preferring death by their own hands to death by human swarm. Others simply shut down, refusing to give orders, sitting catatonic on their bridges while their crews panicked around them. Ambassador Choi Suman saw her opportunity. She opened a direct channel to the Vrakath fleet, her face appearing on every functioning view screen. Vrakath survivors. This is Ambassador Choi Suman of Earth. You are defeated. Your fleet is destroyed. Your reinforcements will never arrive in time to save you. You have one choice remaining. Surrender now. Provide us with all information about your collective's territories, military assets, and leadership structure. In exchange, you will be allowed to leave in designated transport vessels. You will live. Refuse, and the swarm will continue until nothing remains. She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she added, You came to conquer us. You demanded our surrender. Now we demand yours. You have 1 hour to decide. The responses came quickly. Within 30 minutes, 300 Vrakath ships transmitted surrender signals. Their captains saw no other option. Pride meant nothing if you were dead. But Commander Draxus refused. He still had loyal ships, officers who believed retreat was worse than death. He gathered them together, perhaps 200 vessels, and made a decision born of rage and desperation. If he was going to die, he would die attacking Earth. He would at least hurt them. He would make humanity pay some price for their victory. He ordered his remaining fleet to make a full-speed run toward Earth. They would bypass the drone swarms, punch through human defenses, and bombard the planet until their weapons ran dry or they were destroyed. Admiral Han Do-yoon received word of the suicide run within seconds. Lieutenant Kang Hana had been monitoring every Vrakath ship, tracking their movements, predicting their actions. She had known this was coming. They demanded Earth's surrender. Humanity responded with total annihilation, Part 4. The interrogations began immediately. Hundreds of Vrakath prisoners, survivors from surrendered ships, were questioned by human intelligence officers. At first, the aliens refused to cooperate. They had been conquerors for 800 years. They didn't know how to be prisoners. Captain Lee Min-ho changed their minds quickly. He didn't use torture. He didn't need to. He simply showed them recordings of what had happened to their fleet. He showed them the singularity missiles tearing ships apart. He showed them the Cascade Array reducing 200 vessels to atomic dust in seconds. Your fleet came here with 2,000 ships, he told them calmly. We destroyed them all. Every single one. Your reinforcements will arrive in 2 weeks. We'll destroy them too. Then we'll go to your homeworld and destroy everything there. Unless you help us. Unless you tell us everything we want to know. Then maybe, just maybe, some of your people will survive. The aliens talked. They talked a lot. Dr. Park Ji-woo and her intelligence team processed the information constantly. They learned the locations of Vrakath military bases, industrial centers, and fleet staging areas. They learned the command structure, the communication protocols, and the defensive strategies. They learned about the 23 civilizations the Vrakath had conquered, where they were located, and how many of them remained alive in slave camps. But the most valuable information came from decrypting the Vrakath computer systems. Dr. Park's team cracked their encryption in 72 hours. Once inside their networks, they had access to everything. Real-time communications, fleet movements, strategic planning documents, even personal correspondence between Vrakath leaders. It's better than we hoped, Dr. Park reported to Admiral Han Do-yoon. We can monitor their entire military in real time. We'll know where their fleets are before their own commanders do. Ambassador Choi Soo-min listened to the intelligence briefings with growing resolve. She had spent her life as a diplomat, believing in peace and negotiation. But the Vrakath had shown her the limits of diplomacy. Some threats couldn't be negotiated with. They had to be eliminated. She made a proposal to Earth's Unified Council that surprised even herself. We shouldn't wait for them to attack again. We should strike first. We should hit them so hard they never recover. We should destroy the Vrakath collective completely and free everyone they've enslaved. The debate lasted 18 hours. Some council members argued for defensive positions, for fortifying Earth's defenses and waiting, but most agreed with Ambassador Choi. The Vrakath had proven they would never stop. They would send fleet after fleet until either humanity was enslaved or they were destroyed. The vote was decisive. 87% in favor of an offensive war. Admiral Han Doyen was given command of Operation Reckoning. He had 3 months to prepare humanity's first true interstellar war fleet. It seemed impossible. Building a fleet capable of invading alien territory, of fighting far from Earth, of projecting power across dozens of star systems. But Earth's industrial machine surprised everyone, including the humans running it. The drone fighter production continued at maximum capacity, but now they were building larger ships too. Using reverse-engineered Vrakath technology, combined with human innovations, they constructed warships that were faster, more powerful, and more sophisticated than anything either species had built before. Each vessel carried singularity missiles and quantum disruptors as standard armament. Each one was equipped with the latest artificial intelligence systems, allowing small crews to operate large ships efficiently. Each one was designed with one purpose: to wage offensive war against a galactic empire. 3 months later, the fleet was ready. 300 warships, 50,000 drone fighters, and 20,000 special operations soldiers commanded by newly promoted Commodore Lee Min-ho. Lieutenant Kang Hana, now promoted to commander, served as Admiral Han Doyen's chief tactical officer. She had spent the 3 months studying every scrap of intelligence about Vrakath military doctrine. She knew how they fought, how they thought, and most importantly, how they would fail. The first target was a Vrakath border colony, called Tharsis Prime. It was a mining world where 300,000 slaves from 4 different species extracted minerals for the collective. The garrison fleet consisted of 300 warships, enough to defend against typical raiders but not nearly enough to stop what was coming. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't issue warnings. They simply attacked. Commander Kang Hana had planned the assault down to the second. The drone swarms hit first, overwhelming the Vrakath point defenses. Then the human warships struck from multiple vectors simultaneously, their quantum disruptors shutting down enemy shields before the main weapons fired. The battle lasted 4 hours. The Vrakath garrison was annihilated. Not a single enemy ship escaped. Human losses were minimal, just 43 drone fighters and 2 damaged cruisers. Commodore Lee Min-ho led his soldiers to the planet's surface. They stormed the slave camps, expecting resistance from Vrakath guards. What they found instead were guards who surrendered immediately, throwing down their weapons and begging for mercy. The slaves couldn't believe what was happening. They had been in captivity for generations. Some had been born in the camps and had never known freedom. When Lee Min-ho's soldiers broke open the containment barriers and told them they were free, many broke down crying. Among the freed slaves were members of a species called the Thalans, insect-like beings with compound eyes and 4 arms. Their leader, a female named Kirix, approached Lee Min-ho cautiously. "You are the humans?" she asked through a translation device. "The ones who destroyed the Vrakath invasion fleet?" "We are," Lee Min-ho confirmed. "Why?" Kirix asked. "Why would you risk your species to free us? We cannot repay you. We have nothing." Lee Min-ho looked at the thousands of freed slaves gathering around them. "Because slavery is wrong. Because no one should live in chains. Because if we don't stop the Vrakath, they'll enslave everyone eventually. We're not asking for payment. We're asking for allies." Kirix stared at him for a long moment. Then she touched her chest in what Lee Min-ho would learn was a Thalan gesture of deep respect. "You have allies. My people will stand with humanity. We will fight beside you until the Vrakath collective is dust." Similar scenes played out across 17 star systems over the next 6 months. Human forces struck Vrakath colonies and military outposts with devastating precision. Every garrison sent to stop them was destroyed. Every slave camp was liberated. Every planet was freed. Dr. Park Jiwoo's technology continued to evolve. The quantum disruptors became more powerful, able to affect larger areas and disable entire fleets simultaneously. The drone fighters became smarter, their artificial intelligence learning from each battle and adapting tactics in real time. And the freed civilizations joined the fight. The Thalans contributed their knowledge of Vrakath logistics and supply lines. The Korvath, a species enslaved for 400 years, provided intelligence on secret Vrakath military facilities. The Zendu offered their advanced sensor technology, allowing human ships to detect enemy vessels across vast distances. A coalition was forming, not just humans fighting the Vrakath, but dozens of species united against their common oppressor. But the Vrakath collective wasn't defeated yet. In their core territories, the leadership watched the border regions fall with growing alarm. They had never faced organized resistance before. They had never lost territory. They had certainly never lost entire colonies to an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. The Vrakath High Council met in emergency session. They debated for days. Some wanted to negotiate, to offer concessions and peace treaties. Others demanded total war, the mobilization of every ship and soldier to crush the human uprising before it inspired other rebellions. The hardliners won. The High Council appointed War Master Droven to command their response. He was the greatest military mind the Vrakath had ever produced, a strategist who had never lost a battle in 300 years of service. Droven studied the human tactics, analyzed their technology, and developed a plan. He would gather the Vrakath Grand Fleet, over 5,000 warships representing the majority of their military power. He would lure the humans into a single massive battle where numbers would overwhelm their tactical advantages. He chose the Nexus system as his battlefield. It was a strategic location with 12 faster-than-light jump gates connecting to major trade routes. If he controlled Nexus, he could cut off human supply lines and trap their fleet far from Earth. War Master Droven sent messages to every Vrakath military installation. Gather at Nexus, bring every functional ship. Prepare for the largest space battle in galactic history. Human. Intelligence intercepted the orders within hours. Dr. Park Jiwoo decoded them and delivered the information. To Admiral Han Doyun personally. They're gathering their entire fleet at Nexus, she said. Over 5,000 ships. They want a decisive battle. Admiral Han Doyun studied the intelligence reports. Commander Kang Hana stood beside him, already running tactical simulations. Commodore Lee Minho waited for orders, ready to deploy his soldiers wherever they were needed. They demanded Earth surrender. Humanity responded with total annihilation. Part 5. The Nexus system blazed with artificial light as the Vrakath Grand Fleet assembled. 5,300 warships filled the space around the strategic jump gates. It was the largest military force the Vrakath collective had ever gathered in one location. War Master Droven stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the formations take shape. He had spent weeks planning this battle. His fleet was positioned in a massive sphere formation, designed to envelope and crush any enemy that entered the system. Every angle was covered. Every approach was monitored. When the humans arrived, they would find themselves surrounded and outnumbered more than 15 to 1. Droven had studied human tactics extensively. They relied on speed, surprise, and superior technology. But in this battle, none of those advantages would matter. He had too many ships. Even if the humans destroyed half his fleet, the other half would overwhelm them. Mathematics didn't lie. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel exactly where Droven expected them. 300 warships appeared near the edge of the system, supported by thousands of smaller vessels from allied species. It was an impressive force, but pitifully small compared to his grand fleet. They actually came, Droven's tactical officer said, surprised. They see our numbers and they still came. They're arrogant, Droven replied. They've won some battles and think they're invincible. We'll teach them otherwise. All ships begin encirclement. Close the trap. The Vrakath fleet moved like a living thing, thousands of ships flowing into attack formation. They approached from all directions, tightening the sphere, preparing to crush the humans in the center. Admiral Han Doyun watched the Vrakath movements on his tactical displays. Beside him, Commander Kang Hana monitored the positions of every enemy ship. Her fingers moved across her console, entering final calculations. "They're following standard encirclement doctrine," she said calmly. "Just as we predicted. They're grouping their command ships in the center, capital ships on the outer layer, support vessels filling the gaps. It's textbook Vrakath strategy. And they have no idea what's about to happen," Han Doyen replied. He opened a channel to Dr. Park Jiwoo, who was coordinating from her command center on the flagship. "Dr. Park, status of the Oblivion network?" "Fully operational," Dr. Park confirmed. "All quantum markers are active and synchronized. We have complete control over the tactical space within 12 light hours of Nexus. The network is ready." "Then let's show the Vrakath what happens when they underestimate humanity. Activate the network." Throughout the Nexus system and across dozens of nearby star systems, trillions of microscopic quantum markers activated simultaneously. They had been deployed over 6 months of human operations, scattered like invisible seeds wherever human ships had fought. Now they formed a vast, three-dimensional web that connected distant regions of space through quantum tunnels. The effect was immediate and devastating for Vrakath strategy. Human ships that had been in one position suddenly appeared in another, moving instantaneously through the quantum tunnels. Vrakath sensors showed human vessels behind their formations, inside their defensive perimeters, above and below their carefully planned sphere. War Master Droven stared at his tactical display in confusion. The human ships were teleporting. That wasn't possible, but it was happening. "All units maintain formation," he ordered. "Focus fire on human vessels. They can move, but they can't dodge our weapons." But the Vrakath ships couldn't coordinate their fire. Human vessels appeared, fired devastating volleys, and vanished before return fire arrived. Singularity missiles emerged from quantum tunnels directly beside Vrakath capital ships, detonating before point defenses could react. Drone swarms materialized inside enemy formations, slicing through hulls with plasma cutters. Commander Kang Hana orchestrated the assault, like a conductor leading an orchestra. She tracked every Vrakath ship, predicted their movements, and positioned human forces perfectly to exploit weaknesses. Her tactical display showed probability calculations updating constantly, showing her the most efficient ways to destroy the enemy. "Fleet Group Alpha, quantum jump to coordinate 773, she ordered. "Target their command cluster. Fleet Group Beta, emerge at 915, engage their capital ships from behind. Drone swarms, scatter pattern Omega through their support vessels." The human fleet followed her commands with perfect precision. They were no longer fighting a conventional battle. They were fighting in 4 dimensions, using quantum tunnels to move through space in ways the Vrakath couldn't counter. Commodore Lee Minho led his special operations teams through the chaos. His soldiers used personal quantum jumpers, smaller versions of the ship-mounted systems, to board Vrakath vessels directly. They appeared in engineering sections, on bridges, and weapon control rooms. They planted explosives, sabotage systems, and downloaded data from ship computers before vanishing to the next target. War Master Droven watched his carefully planned battle collapse into chaos. His ships were being destroyed faster than he could track. His formations were meaningless when the enemy could appear anywhere. His numerical advantage meant nothing when he couldn't bring his weapons to bear. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "All ships jump to fallback positions. We need to regroup." But there was nowhere to retreat to. The quantum markers covered dozens of systems. Wherever his ships jumped, human forces were already waiting. The Vrakath Grand Fleet was being hunted across multiple star systems simultaneously. Then, Dr. Park Jiwoo activated the network's offensive capabilities. Quantum disruptors positioned throughout the region synchronized, creating cascading disruption waves that could be projected through the tunnel network. Vrakath shields failed across hundreds of ships at once. Their weapons malfunctioned. Their communications went dark. "Now," Admiral Han Doyen said quietly, "deploy the singularity weapons. All of them." Over the past 6 months, human factories had produced 500 singularity missiles. Each one contained a micro-black hole, stabilized and ready to deploy. They had been positioned throughout the network, waiting for this moment. All 500 missiles activated simultaneously. They emerged from quantum tunnels throughout the Vrakath formation. The micro-black holes created gravitational distortions that tore through ship after ship. Metal hulls twisted and collapsed. Massive warships were compressed into fragments. The micro-black holes existed for only seconds, but in those seconds, they erased hundreds of vessels from existence. Warmaster Drovin's flagship shuddered as a singularity missile detonated 300 kilometers away. He watched a dozen capital ships get pulled into the gravitational vortex, crushed and torn apart. The black hole collapsed, and where there had been ships, there was only an expanding debris field. His tactical display showed catastrophic losses. Over 2,000 ships destroyed, another 1,000 damaged beyond combat capability. His grand fleet, assembled to overwhelm the humans through sheer numbers, was being systematically annihilated. Commodore Lee Minho appeared on Warmaster Drovin's bridge. The human had quantum jumped directly into the flagship's command center, accompanied by 20 heavily armed soldiers. Frakath guards tried to intervene, but Lee Minho's team disabled them with precision shots. Warmaster Drovin, Lee Minho said calmly, "I'm here to accept your surrender." Drovin stared at the human. He had never surrendered in 300 years of military service. The concept was alien to him. "I am Vrakath. We do not surrender. Then you'll die," Lee Minho replied simply. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is collapsing. Your entire civilization is about to cease to exist. You can die with it. Or you can surrender and maybe save some of your people. Choose quickly." Drovin looked at his tactical displays one more time. The numbers were undeniable. He had brought the Vrakath Grand Fleet to crush humanity. Instead, humanity was crushing them. He touched his chest in a gesture of submission. "I surrender." Lee Minho transmitted the image across all Vrakath frequencies. Warmaster Drovin, the greatest military commander in Vrakath history, kneeling before a human soldier. The effect on the remaining Vrakath forces was immediate. Ships began surrendering by the hundreds. Crews abandoned their posts. Captains transmitted surrender signals rather than face the same fate as their comrades. Within 6 hours, the Battle of Nexus was over. The Vrakath Grand Fleet had ceased to exist as a fighting force. Of the 5,300 warships that had assembled, fewer than 800 remained intact. All had surrendered. The rest were wreckage drifting through space. Human losses were minimal. 42 ships damaged, 7 destroyed, 3,000 casualties. Against 5,000 enemy vessels, it was a victory that defied every principle of conventional warfare. Ambassador Choi Suman broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. She used the Vrakath communication network, ensuring every species could hear her words. "This is Ambassador Choi Suman of Earth, speaking on behalf of humanity and our allies. The Vrakath Collective came to our world demanding surrender. They threatened to enslave our people, to destroy our civilization, to erase us from existence. They expected us to submit like all the others before us. They were wrong.